I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I'm just trying to make sense of the absolute nightmare I've walked into. I was married to Emily for about 3 years now. We seemed solid enough, or so I thought. She's always been a bit of a bitchy, sharp-tongued woman, super pretty, super confident, and used to getting exactly what she wanted. I guess I got caught up in the idea that I had this perfect life with her, even if she did have that snarky attitude about everything. The signs started small, little things here and there. She'd be more irritable than usual, snapping at me over dumb stuff, and she'd brush off my concerns with some excuse about stress or being busy at work. I told myself it was just her personality. She's always been a bit difficult, but I loved her. Still, deep down, there was this nagging feeling that something was off. I couldn't shake the suspicion that she was hiding something, but I brushed it aside, convinced I was just paranoid. Then, a few weeks ago, I went out of town for a business trip. Emily had been acting weird before I left, more distant, checking her phone constantly, canceling plans last minute. Nothing I could put my finger on. I figured she was just stressed, or maybe she was having a rough time at work. I was gone for 3 days, and during that time I kept getting these strange gut feelings. Something was wrong. I even called her once or twice, and she was curt, dismissive, like she was annoyed I was bothering her. That's not her usual tone. Usually she's flirty, playful, and really into me. When I got back, I noticed her phone was different. She started deleting messages faster than I could see. I knew I shouldn't invade her privacy, but curiosity got the better of me. I saw some texts that made my stomach drop. They weren't just friendly. They were flirty, intimate. The kind of messages that clearly crossed the line. And they weren't from some random guy. These were from her best man, Chris. We've all known each other for years. I'd even joked about their closeness, but I never thought she'd cheat on me with him. Especially not the night I was away, out of town, while she told me. She was just working late and relaxing at home. I found more messages later that night after she thought I was asleep. She was sending him pictures, talking about how stressed she was, how lonely she felt, and how much she wanted to see him. She kept insisting he was just her friend, that nothing was going on. But the tone of her texts, especially the way she was describing how hot he looked and how she wanted to feel his arms around her, made me sick. It was so blatantly obvious what was happening. She was cheating on me, and she didn't even care enough to hide it anymore. I was stunned. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind was racing, trying to process how someone I trusted could do this to me. I kept going over everything I'd seen, trying to find some reason, some excuse she'd give me. But there was nothing. Just the cold, brutal truth that my wife, slept with my best man, Chris, the night before our wedding. The night I was out of town, probably imagining I was doing the same thing and she was with him. It was like my entire world was collapsing, piece by piece. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept replaying those messages, wondering if I was just blind or naive for ignoring all the signs. The next day, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, not after what I found out. I waited until she got home from work, trying to keep my cool, but inside I was already boiling with anger and hurt. When she walked through the door, I just stared at her, my fists clenched. She looked surprised, maybe even annoyed, like I was bothering her. "Emily," I said, my voice lower than usual, "we need to talk." She rolled her eyes and sighed loudly, like I was interrupting her busy schedule. "What now, Jake? I'm tired, can't this wait?" But I wasn't about to go easy. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages I had discovered. Her face instantly went pale, then red with anger. She tried to lie, of course. She told me it was nothing, that Chris was just a friend, that I was overreacting. She laughed, said I was insecure, jealous. I didn't buy her bullshit. I knew what I saw. The messages, the pictures, how she was talking about feeling lonely and how she wanted to feel his hands. How could she lie so easily? I told her I knew everything, that I had caught her cheating, that she was sleeping with my best man. Her reaction was so classic. She started playing the victim, saying I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into it, that I was just jealous because I was away. She even threw in some tears, trying to make me feel guilty for accusing her, like I was the one in the wrong, but I wasn't buying it. Inside, I was a mess, shocked, furious, heartbroken. I felt this deep ache in my chest like I'd been punched again, only worse. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I wanted to scream, to shake her, but I just stood there, staring at her and feeling the worst betrayal I'd ever experienced. I told her I wanted the truth, that I deserved it. She kept denying, kept insisting it was just some stupid mistake, that nothing serious had happened, that Chris was just a friend she'd been talking to because she was stressed out. Deep down, I knew better. I knew this was more than just talking. She slept with him, the night I was out of town, away for work. And she'd been lying to my face all along. It was like I'd been hit by a freight train. How do you even process something like this? I felt this mix of rage and despair, like the ground was shifting beneath me. I wanted to believe her, but her words sounded hollow, like she was trying to justify something that was unforgivable. I asked her if she still loved me, if she'd ever loved me at all. She shrugged, smirked a little, and said, "Honestly, Jake, I don't know what I feel anymore. Maybe I was just bored, maybe I was stupid, but you're not perfect either. You're never around, always working or busy with your stupid projects." That cut deep. Her words, her attitude, they were so cold, so dismissive. She acted like she didn't care, like I was just an inconvenience. I remember feeling this huge wave of confusion hit me. I was angry, but I was also devastated. How did I get here? How did the woman I loved, the woman I'd planned my whole future with, turn into someone capable of cheating, of lying straight to my face? I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and make her confess everything. But I kept my composure, knowing that no matter what she said, I'd never see her the same way again. That night I just sat alone, staring at the wall, feeling numb. Part of me wanted to believe her, to forgive her and move on. But another part, the one I couldn't ignore, knew that trust was shattered beyond repair. I felt like I was losing my mind. My world was falling apart and I didn't even know how to fix it, or if I even wanted to. All I knew was that I needed time to breathe, to think. And right then, I realized that this betrayal wasn't just an affair. It was a death sentence for whatever was left of my marriage. The days that followed were like living in some kind of nightmare. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, smirking, dismissive, like she didn't even care about what she'd done. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see that she was capable of this. I replayed every conversation, every look, every moment we shared, trying to find some clue I'd missed. But the truth was staring me in the face. Emily had been playing me from the start. I started noticing small things that I'd overlooked before. The way she kept her phone hidden, the way she'd suddenly become more defensive when I asked about her plans. Even how she'd brush off my concerns with a sharp remark, telling me I was just paranoid. I kept thinking, maybe all those little signs were there and I just didn't want to see them. Or maybe I did and I refused to admit it. Either way, I felt like a fool for trusting her. One night, I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I knew I had to figure out what I wanted. I sat her down, looked her in the eyes, and told her I knew everything. I said I wasn't going to play her game anymore, that I deserved honesty. She scoffed again, rolled her eyes, and said she was tired of my accusations. She even tried to turn it around on me, saying I was the one who was distant, that I'd been ignoring her, that she was just a woman trying to find her happiness. That was the moment I realized she was completely manipulative. She was twisting everything to make herself look innocent and me look like a jealous idiot. She kept insisting that Chris was just a friend, that I was overreacting, that I was insecure. But I knew better. I'd seen the messages, the pictures, her own words. There was no denying it anymore. She slept with him the night before our wedding while I was out of town, trusting her. That thought hit me like a freight train, and I swear I felt my chest tighten, my vision blur. I told her I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. I told her I was done. I needed time to think, to process what had happened. I told her I didn't know if I could ever forgive her, if I even wanted to stay with someone who could do something so cruel. Her reaction was to scream and cry, accuse me of ruining everything, of being a shitty husband. She said I was overreacting, that I was just being paranoid, that I had no proof. And maybe I didn't have all the proof at that moment, but I didn't need more. I knew enough. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was bleeding inside. I kept asking myself how I'd gotten here, how I could have trusted someone who was capable of lying and cheating so blatantly. I started seeing her in a different light. No longer the woman I thought I knew, but someone entirely different, someone I didn't recognize anymore. I was angry at her for the lies, for the deception, but I was also angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept thinking, how could I have been so blind? That night, I packed a bag and slept on the couch. I didn't want to be near her. I was overwhelmed with a mixture of rage, sadness, and betrayal. I knew that things wouldn't be the same anymore. I kept telling myself I'd give her a chance to explain, to maybe make sense of this mess, but deep down, I knew that trust had been broken beyond repair. The feeling in my gut told me I had to decide whether to fight for this marriage or walk away. I just didn't know if I had the strength to keep going like this. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and the weight of everything I'd learned was crushing. I sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what I was supposed to do. Part of me wanted to just forget everything, to pretend it never happened and go back to normal. But I knew that was a lie. Deep down, I knew I couldn't pretend I was okay with what she'd done. Not anymore. I decided I needed to hear her out one last time. I called her and told her I wanted to talk face to face. She hesitated but eventually agreed. When she arrived, she looked tired, like she'd been crying, probably because she knew I was about to confront her again. She sat down across from me and tried to put on her usual sneer, like she was too cool to care. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything, the texts, the pictures, the whole story. I demanded the truth. She finally broke down and admitted it, said she was stressed, that she made a mistake, and that Chris was just someone she'd been talking to because she was lonely. She kept insisting it was a one-time thing and that she didn't mean for it to happen. She said she was sorry, that she never intended for any of it to get so out of control. I could barely listen. Her words sounded hollow, too little, too late. I felt a cold fury rise inside me. I asked her why she'd lied to me for so long, why she'd deceived me while I was out of town. She shrugged, like she was unimpressed with her own betrayal. "You're never around anyway," she snapped. "I was just trying to find some happiness. You always work, always busy. I was just looking for something real and I found it with Chris." That was when everything inside me shattered. She didn't even seem sorry, just angry, dismissive, and blaming me for everything. Like I was the reason she cheated. I realized that her excuses and her tears weren't going to change anything. She betrayed me in the worst way possible and she didn't seem to care. I sat there feeling numb, thinking about all the good times we'd had, how I'd trusted her, how I'd loved her, and now it was all gone. I told her she needed to leave. I couldn't be near her anymore. I needed space to think about what was next. As she gathered her things and left, I felt this strange mixture of relief and despair. Part of me was relieved that I finally knew the truth, but the other part was devastated. The woman I thought I married had been sleeping with my best man, and I had no idea how to process that. I kept asking myself if I even wanted to save this, or if I should just cut ties and walk away for good. That day, everything changed. I started seeing my life differently. I realized how much I'd trusted her, how much I'd sacrificed for us, only to get blindsided by such a brutal betrayal. I felt angry, but also a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't stay with someone who treated me like that, no matter how much I loved her. It was a sharp lesson in trust, how fragile it is and how easily it can be shattered by lies and betrayal. I've spent days just trying to breathe, trying to figure out my next move. And honestly, I'm still not sure what that is, but I know I can't go back. Not anymore. After Emily left, I was alone in the apartment and it hit me hard. The silence was deafening. All the times I'd come home expecting her to be there, to be waiting for me, now suddenly I was facing an empty space that felt colder than I ever imagined. I kept replaying everything, her lies, her sneers, the way she dismissed my feelings like I was nothing. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly like a complete idiot for not seeing the signs sooner. For days, I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to talk to friends or family. I just wanted to be alone and digest what had happened. I was angry, not just at her, but at myself, for trusting someone so blindly? How did I miss all those red flags? How did I ignore the little things that now seemed so obvious? I kept telling myself I should have known better, that I should have seen it coming. But even amid all that, a part of me was still holding on to hope that maybe, just maybe, I could somehow fix this. Then I started thinking about Chris, my best man, my closest friend. How could he do this to me? The guy I'd shared everything with, the guy I'd trusted to stand by me on my wedding day. It was like my whole world was crumbling, and all I could feel was this deep, burning betrayal. I remembered how they'd always been close, how she'd always said Chris was just a good friend, but now I knew better. I had seen the messages, the pictures. They crossed a line, and I was the fool who didn't see it coming. I also started questioning myself. Was I a terrible husband? Was I just too busy with work, too distracted, that I let her slip away? I kept thinking about all the moments we'd shared. Were they all just lies? Did she ever really love me? Or was I just a placeholder for her until she found something better? The doubts kept gnawing at me, but I knew the truth was clear. I'd been played. And worst of all, I'd been blind to the signs. One night I reached a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I was done pretending everything was okay. I needed closure, some way to move forward, even if it meant facing the pain. I made a plan to meet Chris. I wasn't going to scream or beat him up. That wouldn't solve anything. I just wanted to hear it from him face to face, what he thought he was doing. I knew I had to confront him to get some kind of explanation, even if deep down I already knew the answer. The day I met him was tense. We sat in a quiet bar and I looked him straight in the eyes. I wanted answers. I wanted him to tell me why he'd done this, why he'd slept with my wife while I was out of town trusting her. He looked uncomfortable, trying to avoid my gaze, but eventually he muttered something about getting caught up in the moment and not meaning to hurt anyone. Yeah, right, that's what they all say, I told him. He was a piece of shit, that he was supposed to be my friend, and he betrayed me worse than anyone ever could. I felt that old anger boiling over, but I also felt a strange numbness. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about realizing how broken everything was, how everything I'd believed in turned out to be a lie. I had trusted Emily with everything, and she threw it away for some meaningless sex. Chris betrayed me too. They all did. And I was left standing there, feeling like I'd lost everything that mattered. After that, I decided I needed to take some time for myself. I told them both I was done with them, that I didn't want to see their faces again. I knew I had to start rebuilding, even if that meant starting over alone. I told myself I'd find my way through this, even if it felt impossible right now. It's hard to explain the kind of pain that comes with knowing the person you loved and trusted most in the world turned out to be your biggest betrayal. But I also realized something important. I deserved better. I deserved to be with someone who wasn't capable of lying, cheating, and tearing my life apart. So I've been trying to pick up the pieces. It's a slow process, one day at a time. I still feel angry, still feel hurt, but I know I can't let this destroy me. I've learned that not everyone is who they seem to be, and sometimes even the people closest to you can turn out to be the biggest enemies. I guess I just hope that in time I'll forget the pain, find peace, and maybe even forgive myself for trusting the wrong people. But for now, I'm just trying to survive, trying to remember who I am outside of this betrayal. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much this process has changed me. I used to believe in fairy tale endings, marriage, trust, loyalty. I thought I had found my forever with Emily. But that illusion shattered when I discovered her betrayal, and I had to face the brutal truth that sometimes the people you love the most can hurt you the deepest. It's a painful lesson, but one I needed to learn. I've come to understand that sometimes love isn't enough to keep a relationship going, especially when there's deception and betrayal involved. I won't lie, I still feel the sting. Every day there's a moment when I think about her, about what could have been, and I have to remind myself that I deserve honesty and respect, not lies and infidelity. I've realized I was a good man who gave his trust, his heart, and his future to someone who didn't value it. That realization hurts, but it also sets me free. Through all of this, I've learned to listen to my instincts. I've learned that ignoring the signs only prolongs the pain. I've learned that sometimes you have to walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to recognize your worth. I've accepted that I can't control what others do, but I can control how I respond. And right now, I choose to rebuild, to focus on myself, and to remember that life goes on, even after it's been torn apart. Most importantly, I've learned the importance of self-respect. No matter how much I loved her, I won't settle for someone who betrayed me. I won't allow myself to be hurt again by someone who doesn't value honesty. This heartbreak has been a wake-up call, when I needed to stop hiding behind illusions and start facing reality. I've realized that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means accepting what happened, learning from it, and moving forward better and stronger. So now, I'm slowly picking up the pieces. I'm reconnecting with friends, doing things I love, and trying to rediscover who I am outside of this mess. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't let this define me. It's just a chapter, one I wish I didn't have to live through, but one that has taught me a lot about trust, betrayal, and resilience. And honestly, I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar can find the strength to get through it too. Because even in the darkest moments, there's a flicker of hope, and that's what keeps me going.